tonight, April 4th in Calgary, is a group called Alberta Proud who stand together upon the concern for Alberta's future, and they present the Can't Stop Alberta tour. On their agenda tonight, their plan is to discuss jobs, affordability, and education, which will be in discussion by speakers such as Chris Sims from the Canadian Taxpayers Federation and Josh Andrews from Project Confederation. Afterwards, Rick Bell from the Calgary Sun, Christy Kohler from Common Sense Calgary, and Dan McLean, a Ward 13 councillor, will be touching on crime and public safety. Alberta is only 1 month away from the provincial election, which has folks gathering together to focus on and discuss what this province needs to flourish. I was able to speak to some of the guest speakers and get some deeper insight.
Whether you want to call it just transition or climate change mitigation or environment or sustainability or whatever, we live in a world where there is a small sector of radical activists who are out to lunch about how the way the world works. No one is opposed to having a clean environment. No one is opposed to improving the world in all these sorts of ways. But we have a narrow sliver of activists who think we can just stop using oil and gas tomorrow and everything will be fine. And no, if we stop using oil and gas tomorrow, millions of people would die around the world.
So I wanted to connect with people in Alberta. I wanted an opportunity to get some of my friends out with me, to get out in these venues, super grassroots, connecting with everyday Albertans. I believe that the future in unleashing the conservative voice and getting through to average everyday people and turning apathy on its head is to connect with everyday Albertans. And when I say everyday, I mean the school teachers, I mean the single moms, I mean the truck drivers, I mean our best in the world energy workers. And I wanted an opportunity to go around before the election, which is on May 29th. We believe this is a really important election. We believe in common sense, low taxes, and conservative values. And Alberta Proud believes that the government at this time that needs 4 more years is the UCP government under the leadership of Premier Danielle Smith. Now, my friends who have joined me on this tour, they are nonpartisan. They're speaking from a conservative lens, but they are themselves nonpartisan. And we wanted to just get in front of people, get people rallied up, start getting excited about the election, get activated, get involved, get out in your communities, volunteer for candidates. If you want change, the change starts with you. So you can't stop Alberta, but you can't do it off the couch.
So we cannot afford just transition, and we can't afford even just a fraction of it. And very quickly, I just wanted to highlight something. I really like how you picked up on the kilowatt hour thing and the differential. So I lived in Ontario for a long time, and I worked in talk radio. At the time, there was a major crisis in hydro electricity being unaffordable. Why was it unaffordable? Well, because back then, the Dalton McGuinty and Kathleen Wynne Liberal government turned around, shut down a lot of their hydroelectricity, which was producing basically free energy from places like Niagara Falls, and they signed, in some cases, 20 or 30-year-long contracts with solar and wind developers. I'll give you an idea. So let's say the general power rate was about 3 cents per kilowatt hour. In some cases, they signed these decades-long contracts for 80 cents per kilowatt hour. Guess who's paying the differential? All of you. All of the ratepayers of Ontario were paying for these outrageously marked up contracts for these solar and wind projects, and that's why we had little old ladies taping off the rest of their house and living in one room with an oil lamp. I'm not exaggerating. I got calls to my radio station saying just that. The same architects of that plan moved from Queen's Park in Toronto to guess where? Ottawa. Those same folks are the ones who designed the current federal carbon tax, and they're the same ones that want to triple the mandatory minimum carbon tax. So folks need to know what these numbers are and how much it's going to cost them.
Look, oil and gas is going to be a huge part of the Alberta economy for decades to come. And if we're smart, oil and gas will be phased out over time when the market decides that the alternative technologies are more effective, more efficient, and better value. What the governments are trying to do, both in Canada and around the world, is phase out oil and gas before it makes sense to do so, and then force people to do so because they wouldn't otherwise do so. And when you try and do that, that's when you start to break economies and massively increase the cost of everything that everybody does and everything that everybody buys. And so the risk of trying to transition before we're able to, before the technology is right, before the availability is there, is that we could massively destabilize both Alberta's economy, but also the economy of the whole of the country.
Just transition should just be called Just Break Alberta instead. It would have an uneven impact on Alberta because it is going after industries such as energy, farming, trucking, manufacturing, and construction. So really industries that are essential for our modern way of life and how we live. And if you take a look at all of the salaries that would have been involved with the industries and the jobs that were listed in that memo on Just Transition, it actually adds up to more than $200 billion per year. We cannot afford even a fraction of that. So we just can't afford Just Transition.
We have the resources that make the country go. Energy is the industry that powers every other industry. Without affordable energy, it's hard to have economic growth. And so for Alberta, we need the ability to unlock our energy potential. That means pipeline bottlenecks need to be cleaned up. We need to be able to export our resources to market. We also need to have an affordable fiscal policy to help with rising costs. So there's a lot we need to do, but it all comes down to being responsible with our money and opening up our market access for our resources.
I believe that there's such great people in Quebec, but unfortunately the Quebec government has implemented a hydrocarbon ban. So they are currently expropriating our companies. I think there's 3 Alberta companies that are undergoing that. And they're blocking and barricading our prosperity. They're not allowing us to do any more hydrocarbon exploration, not to build any more pipelines. And so when you're against our energy industry, you're against Alberta and you're against the rest of Canada, period. And that's how I believe that Quebec is being really detrimental to our progress.
We now have politicians who aren't speaking for the citizens. There are a few exceptions. Who are not speaking for responsibility. They are speaking, and they are definitely not supportive of the police, because the police are now the systemically racist, authoritarian bad guys, and the other people are the vulnerable. So over time, the political class in this city at the municipal level, I think Councillor McLean would agree, has started really not being interested in confronting this issue. I live 2 blocks from the drug site. So I know, and I know Peter does too, I know about it. I have seen guys smash their hands against trees screaming at 2 o'clock in the morning until their hand looked like ground beef. True. I've seen guys try to strip the first layer of skin off their calf with a knife because they're feeling the prickliness from their drug taking. And I've seen the cars vandalized. I've seen the people scared, and I haven't even started talking about transit yet. And what has the city done? What has city council done? What has city hall done? We have a federal government who has a catch and release bail system, which is totally absurd, where people are being arrested and let out. Even we had a guy, I hope I could say this, we had in Calgary a guy who stabbed 3 people, and he was out on bail for another serious offense on the condition he didn't have any knives, and he goes out and stabs 3 people in downtown Calgary on Monday. So it's a joke. It's a cruel joke. It's a bad joke. But it's one thing to write letters to the editor. It's one thing to complain. It's one thing to go to the coffee shop and tell your buddies how much the system sucks. But people have to get politically involved. People have to get behind individuals who are identifying the problem and offering solutions which are realistic solutions. Defunding the police is not a realistic solution. It is an experiment that has blown up in the faces of Canadians. Period. Full stop.
The province has stepped in and is offering a lot more money to the law enforcement, but that's where it all comes down to for me. More boots in the ground, working with the province and our other partners, more peace officers, and actually enforcing the law.
The situation is really simple. The province has stepped in, the government of Premier Danielle Smith, and they've stepped in with about $15 million to fund 100 police officers between Calgary and Edmonton. I'm still waiting for Calgary City Council to do something because that money, of course, is coming from provincial taxpayers, which includes Calgarians and Edmontonians, but also includes people throughout Alberta. But so obviously what this shows is that the current provincial government realizes there's a big problem with public safety, realizes something has to be done, realizes we need a more visible police presence, we need more police officers on the street patrolling, and City Council in Calgary does not seem to have that same appetite to actually confront the problem, confront the situation with, more officers, more police.
They are giving government money, taxpayers' money, to other media outlets. So the government is deciding who a journalist is, deciding if they get money, and then at the same time, they've got C11 coming through really quickly that will then decide whether or not you all get to see the content you want to see and share the content you want to share based on a bunch of bureaucrats in the CRTC deciding if it's Canadian enough or not. Following up that is going to be something called the Online Harms Bill. The Canadian Heritage Ministry is going to decide whether or not it is harmful for you to learn about things like the carbon tax, okay? They're going to decide whether or not using that term is disinformation. So major things happening. 1, government deciding who a journalist is. 2, government funding journalists. 3, government shutting down opposition voices online. This is super critical for people to understand because it's never happened like this before.
How can people get more involved to bring about positive change?
I think the number one thing, and I said it during the panel, is to read it and become articulate with your arguments. If you're able to change someone's mind, you may be able to impact 10 other people by having those people change the minds of their friends and family. So the big thing is being well-read and just continuing to advocate for the things that you're passionate about, especially on energy independence within Canada.
Thank you for joining me today. If you want to show off your Alberta patriotism, the Rebel News store has some awesome new merch in store. My personal favorite is Don't Ottawa My Alberta Tea. You can head to rebelnewsstore.com and get yours today. Stay strong and stay free. For Rebel News, I'm Angelica Toy.